They didn't build China to be rich. They built it to be cheap. Not cheap like discounts, cheap like replaceable. Cheap like if one factory burns down, 10 more are already waiting. That's the uncomfortable truth most people miss when they say, China became the world's factory because they worked harder. Hard work was part of it, but it wasn't the reason. The real reason is colder, more calculated, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because this story isn't really about China. It's about how the modern world decided where value lives and where it doesn't. Right now, this matters more than ever. Supply chains are breaking, countries are reshoring factories, tariffs are back, and everyone is asking the same question. How did one country end up making everything? Your phone, your shoes, your furniture, your cables, your toys. This didn't happen by accident. It happened step by step, quietly. Let's rewind. In the late 1970s, China was poor, really poor. Most people were farmers. Factories were inefficient. The country was isolated. Then, something radical happened. China didn't try to beat the West at innovation. It didn't try to invent better brands. It didn't try to out-design Silicon Valley. Instead, it made a simpler bet. What if we become the place where nothing is precious? Labor wasn't precious. Land wasn't precious. Margins weren't precious. Even pollution wasn't precious. That decision changed everything. Here's the key move. China opened special zones along its coast. These were economic laboratories. Inside them, foreign companies were invited in, not with speeches, with math, ultra-cheap labor, tax breaks, loose regulations, factories built fast, permits approved faster, and one rule that mattered more than all the others. If you want access to China's workforce, you build here. At first, Western companies were cautious. They moved low-value work, textiles, shoes, basic electronics, the boring stuff. But then, something subtle happened. When thousands of factories cluster together, costs fall in ways spreadsheets don't predict. Your supplier is next door. Your supplier's supplier is across the street. The machine repair guy is downstairs. The port is 40 minutes away. This is called industrial density, but in practice, it feels like gravity. Once you're inside, leaving becomes expensive. China didn't just offer cheap labor, it offered speed. You could design a product on Monday, tool it on Tuesday, test it on Wednesday, and ship it by Friday. No emails across time zones. No waiting 6 months for capacity, just motion. That speed created a feedback loop. More factories meant more skills. More skills meant better output. Better output meant more orders. More orders meant even more factories. This wasn't a miracle. It was compounding. And here's where the uncomfortable math shows up: margins. Western brands learned something ugly. Consumers say they care about ethics, but they buy price. Every dollar shaved off manufacturing is a dollar added to marketing, distribution, or profit. China didn't force companies to move. It simply made staying expensive. If your competitor makes the same product for 30% less, you don't win by having better values. You lose. So the shift accelerated. Electronics, appliances, machinery, entire industries hollowed out elsewhere. Not because China was smarter, but because it was willing to absorb pain others wouldn't. Low wages, long hours, environmental damage. China traded short-term suffering for long-term leverage. That leverage became power, because once the world depends on your factories, you don't just make goods. You shape timelines, you influence prices, you become unavoidable. Here's the irony. China didn't get rich by selling cheap stuff. It got rich by learning how cheap stuff is made. Every foreign factory trained Chinese workers. Every joint venture transferred knowledge. Every production line was a classroom. Over time, China moved up the ladder, from assembling to manufacturing to designing to branding. The world noticed too late. By the time companies wanted to diversify, the ecosystem didn't exist elsewhere. You can't just move a factory. You need ports, suppliers, engineers, logistics, trust. Those take decades. This is the part people don't like to hear. China didn't steal the factory crown. It was handed over, one cost-cutting decision at a time, one quarterly earnings call at a time, one spreadsheet cell at a time. Now, the hype says China is unstoppable, that it will always be the world's factory. Reality is more fragile. Wages are rising. Demographics are shifting. Geopolitics is tightening. The same forces that built this system are now stressing it. Companies want resilience, not just efficiency. Governments want control, not just growth. Factories are spreading to Vietnam, India, Mexico. But here's the catch. None of them fully replace China. Not yet, because the real factory isn't the buildings. It's the coordination, the invisible network of people, processes, and timing that took 40 years to build. And once you see that, a harder question appears. If the world rebuilt its supply chains somewhere else, would it make the same choices again? Would it still chase the lowest cost, knowing exactly what that cost really is? Or was China a one-time alignment of history, labor, and silence that can't be repeated? That question doesn't have a clean answer, and the future of global manufacturing depends on how honestly we're willing to face it.